Hey, race fans. I'm Casey Mears. Welcome to Phoenix Raceway for Championship Weekend. We have with us the driver of the number 32 Go Fast Racing Ford, Corey Lajoie. Hey, Corey, how you doing, man?
Man, good to see you, Casey. I actually miss seeing you on the racetrack every week, but I guess Zoom calls is the next best alternative.
I'll take that. I miss being there with you guys. But hey, one of the first things I wanted to ask you, Corey, is that I grew up in a racing family, and I know you did too. I raced early on with your dad, and saw the passion that he had for you, and working really hard at getting you going. I remember testing at Rockingham one time, and you guys were out there testing, and he was just working his butt off, with you guys to help get your car going. How was it, having your dad around you like that around motorsports and, working your way up and getting to work with him?
Yeah, so I'm sure it was along the same lines as you, right? Your expectations that your dad has for you are high enough to where, if you meet him, then you ultimately get to where you're making a profession at it, like you and I both were lucky enough to do. But I think that it's pretty cool for me to be able to race on Sundays. I'm not necessarily competitive as I want to be just yet, but the fact that dad passed up on some Sunday opportunities when he was one of the big fish in the Xfinity pond or the Busch Series pond back then to spend time with me and my brother on Sundays and race go-karts and hang out and ride four-wheelers and do all that sort of stuff. So, I don't take it for granted being able to race on Sundays. I got a 7-month-old now, so I definitely know how important it is to hang out and just be in your kid's life. And I didn't realize that until I had my own, that how big of a change that was going to be for my life, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's actually one other question I had for you. Being a new father was one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. And I've been following you on social media and keeping up with what you got going on. You got a beautiful little one there, and that's got to be something you're really enjoying.
Yeah, little Levi's my buddy. He came early. He actually came. So he came March 11th was his birthday, but it was the 13th when we were driving down to Atlanta, and they canceled it. And that's when the pandemic, all the stuff started hitting the fan. So it was actually almost like a paternal leave of sorts for the next 3 or 4 months. Everybody's locked in and can't go anywhere. And we were just at home with a toddler trying to learn how it works. So luckily I was able to spend a lot of time with him and Kelly. The early stages when he's not sleeping, and you don't know what you don't know when you're a first time parent. So, and I'm sure you're a lot like me, Casey, where before that I couldn't unplug. It was race mode all the time, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, and then the time when you're sleeping, you're dreaming about it. So it's always racing. It's always how to figure out how to go faster, position yourself, get more partners. But now that he's come, it's allowed me to almost unplug when I get home, or unplug certain times throughout the week. But when I plug back in, I'm able to put even more passion to the racing side, that because I'm not burned out. It's always, now I have a distinct difference between my career as well as family life. So it's been a lot of fun.
Man, I think that's a really good point and a great way of saying it, because I kind of felt the same way. When I had my kids, you have people going, "Oh, now you're a father, so now you're not dedicated." And actually, in turn, I think really helps, just like you said. So that's a really good point. One other question I had for you was, obviously it's been a crazy year for everybody, with COVID and, all the changes at the track and all the safety changes. It's affected people adversely, but then it's also helped some other people depending on the scenario. How do you feel that it's maybe affected your situation? I know you're with a smaller program, not having practice, all those things, just showing up and having to be ready to go at the track. How did it affect you, positive or negative?
Yeah, I mean, I think that any time that you can work a little bit less and get paid the same, it's worked out pretty good for me. And in particular, I'm sure about everybody else, that's kind of how it's worked out too, because you're still racing and all of your stuff isn't structured necessarily around practice or qualifying. So instead of being at the racetrack for Saturday qualifying, happy hour, then a race, you really just pull the pin on Sunday afternoon and get after it, and then you go home. So there's been a lot of pros to it. The cons are obviously not being able to have the fans at the racetrack, not being able to give those partners and sponsors really in-depth, just a VIP treatment like you were used to, coming to the pit box and hanging out and seeing the garage and stuff like that. We're not able to do until, sometime next year. But, ultimately, we want to get the fans back as soon as possible. There's only 8,500 allowed at Phoenix, which is going to feel empty, but at least it's better than nothing like we've had some of these places. But for me, I think in NASCAR as a whole, they've kind of they've seen what the fat, if you will, that they were able to trim and not really hurt the product that they show on Sunday afternoon or Saturday night for that matter. So when it comes to, a little bit extra practice time, just being at the track for a 3-day weekend might not necessarily be necessary. So I think it's allowed NASCAR to kind of look at the slate and be like, okay, this is what we need, this is what we don't need, and also save the teams and drivers some money and time in the process. It's been good.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing I had a question for you too, because I was involved in a lot of different teams, some big teams, some smaller teams, but I know that when I was involved in the smaller teams and programs, it was always tough to balance performance versus expectations, expectations of sponsors, expectations of team owners, and then expectations of the fans, and then your expectations internally of what you want to do. How do you kind of, go through all that? What conversations do you have with your team, sponsors and programs to just kind of balance all that when you know that you're probably, obviously a little underfunded and it's going to be tougher to get those real strong results?
Yeah, that's a great question, because, the broadcast can't tell the entire story every weekend. That when the people watch, why does a 32 car run 27th to 30th every week? It's just because if there was a flag flying in the back of the haulers from the first guy to the last guy, it probably is pretty chronological in terms of funding. So that's where my hashtag on social media kind of started taking some traction. It's stacking pennies. So that moniker is, you have to set realistic expectations, whether that be the things you can control. Don't have any pit road penalties. Look back on your pit road rolling speed, see if you can be in the top 10 and just work on that craft, and, maintain track around restarts, beat some guys that might have some, more resources or a little bit bigger budget. And if you can put a penny on the stack, ultimately by the end of the year, you're going to have $1. And I think that we do a pretty decent job of that. As a team, we've had some mechanical issues, which have been tough, but, if we can be in the top 10 and rolling speed is one of the things doesn't matter what car you're driving. That's just the little things that eventually, when you get the call and you're contended for wins, those can be the differences of winning and losing, as you know. So just trying to work on things that I can control. And then the things that, that you can't control, you kind of you take with a grain of salt. But also on the other side of that, with the partners, your partners know that they're getting in at a lower level, so the investment isn't quite as much. So it's allowed partners to dip their toe in the water. I'm actually wearing it. I wasn't even planning on it, but Motor Trend, I was in that all-in show for them early this season. They were on our cart, the first race at Phoenix. And then Dryden's a smaller oil company that, is likes that price point for return on investment that a small team gives. So it has its perks. Naturally, I'm a competitor. I want to try to win races one day, and hopefully I position myself to be able to do that. But for now, I'm just having some fun, stacking some pennies.
Man, I love that hashtag. As soon as I heard it the first time, I could completely relate to that in a couple of different scenarios I was in. So I think that's a super cool deal. But I guess along those lines a little bit, I mean, we've obviously heard news that you're looking to maybe do something different next year. I'm not trying to pin you down on anything, but what's something that you're looking for? Obviously, you've done a really good job, I think, with a lot of your sponsors of delivering for them, in the scenario that you're in. I don't know how you do that. I don't know if it's just something that you personally do, or if you have a group of people that help you find those sponsors. But between the sponsors and then also looking forward, how are you approaching this off season and how you're trying to figure out what you're going to do for next year?
The free agent game is getting weirder and weirder by the year. Brad Keselowski, during his free agent tenure there, he was talking a lot about how the driver market pays obviously substantially down from when it was the last time, and it was kind of ill time for him in terms of negotiating. But you have to have, at the end of the day, no matter if it's racing or just in business in general, you have to have some leverage. And the way you have leverage as a race car driver is to have some funding behind you to believe in your brand, and also believe in the sport as a whole. But luckily, I've had some great partners: Schluter Systems, Dryden, Motor Trend. Everybody who's helped out seems to like the way I handle myself off camera and on social media and on the racetrack. So they continue to invest in my career, which makes it easier to have those conversations leading to the off season when you're looking for somewhere to drive. But hopefully by the time people are watching this, I should have something done. So I should know something here in the next couple of days. Hopefully I can sign up and start. It'll be something that'll be a little bit surprising and might not be the most exciting. And it might not get the most retweets on Twitter, but I do think it has a ton of upside. The equipment's going to be pretty solid. Should be working with some good people and hopefully have something to build on for the next couple of years.
Well, hey, listen, I know personally just watching you and how you handle yourself and what you do for your sponsors is outstanding. So cool to see that you have some people behind you, and it gives you a little bit of something to have in your pocket to go find out what is going to be the best thing for you. But one last question is, obviously we're here in Phoenix for championship weekend. I'd love to ask you about the racetrack. What are some things that you enjoy about the Phoenix racetrack, and if you can kind of describe maybe what you like most about, I guess, racing here on this particular track.
Yeah, so Phoenix is tricky, man. And I actually did get the chance to race on the old Phoenix. I wish I did, because that seemed like that track had a lot of character. But with this repave, I think with any new repave, just is non-porous as that asphalt is, it doesn't make the racing great for the first couple of years. But the last couple of races at Phoenix have actually been really good once the asphalt starts wearing out. NASCAR is starting to get a good idea of how to lay that PJ1 down to widen that groove out. So there's a tough balance to getting your car set up for Phoenix, because it has to have a good aero balance, because it is just fast enough through that. I guess it's turn 1 and 2 now, where it's really flat and sweeping. We have to have a good platform, but you also have to have some mechanical grip too to be able to turn. So it's got a little mix of both. It's not really a short track, not really intermediate, but it's kind of a mesh of them both. And that's what makes it a challenger for a crew chief, but it also makes it fun for a driver.
Hey, Corey. Well, cool, man. Hey, we really appreciate your time here at Phoenix Raceway. I want to wish you the best of luck this weekend, and look forward to seeing what you have going on in the future. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Casey. Talk soon.